Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to begin this evening's board meeting. School board meeting of September 13, 2016 is now called to order. The time is 6:15. At this time, we request all electronic devices be turned off or put into the silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from using flash photography during the meeting. We'd like to take this opportunity to remind members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her personal potential, and the district's vision to be a world-class school system. This evening's agenda includes the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, one acknowledgement, public comment, the consent action item, which includes 3 items under resolutions, 3 items under executive services, 9 items under academic services, 5 items under business services, 4 items under human resources, 3 items under operations, and there are 6 items under superintendent's recommendations. There's 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
By Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Dozier. Ms. LaRiviere, are you here with us this evening?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Ms. LaRiviere is attending via telephone. She's a little under the weather, but she is here telephonically. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. At this point, Ms. Fisher will deliver the invocation, after which Ms. Morgan will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise?
Thank you. Bow your heads. Father, we ask your blessing on all gathered here tonight. Please guide us as we prepare to educate our children and grant us the wisdom to make sound decisions and to remember that we are public servants. Help us to see the glass that is half full, the essay that is half written, the answer that is halfway correct. Help us to see the many students with their hands up, not just the few who are shouting out. Banish our spirit of self-resignation and procrastination. Replace it with a spirit of determination, energy, and action. Help us to be bold and tenacious, to believe in ourselves, to believe in our colleagues, to believe that all things are possible. Give us a sense of purpose and direction. Help us to praise students and coworkers who keep going and to celebrate our successes as we provide our community with a world-class educational system. Please join me now in a moment of silence for our friend, colleague, and supporter, Patty Lottler. Thank you.
Tonight, the cadet presenting the national colors will be introduced by Command Sergeant Major retired Edwin Rodriguez of North Fort Myers High School. Sergeant Major Rodriguez retired after 34 years of service. He earned 3 Bronze Star Medals for Valor and the Legion of Merit for distinguished service.
Thank you. The national colors for our Pledge of Allegiance tonight are presented by Cadet Sophia Poltro. Sophia is the brigade commander for North Fort Myers High School JROTC program. She's a member of the Color Guard, Drill, Academic, and Raider teams. Sophia served as the JROTC Brigade Adjutant her sophomore and junior years. Sophia has volunteered many hours in the community at the American Legion Post 336, Take Pride in America National Parks Cleanup, North Fort Myers High School, and the Foundation for Lee County Schools. Outside of JROTC, Sophia is the Executive Officer for the National Honor Society, Secretary of Thespians, and Mu Alpha Theta. She has a 4.39 weighted GPA and plans to attend the University of Florida to become a political journalist. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. This time we have our character word for September is acceptance, the recognition of diversity of others, their opinions, practices, and cultures with a favorable reception. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Helen Keller. The design you see up on the wall is displayed on the screens is created by Erica Huffman. She's a 12th grader at Cypress Lake High School. Thank you, Erica. At this point, we will now move to public comment. Mr. Martin, would you please address the agenda item of public comment?
School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operations of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted that to me before the meeting began, you'll be called in the order of the card submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the school board this evening, the school board chair, Mr. Toible, will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning public comment are posted at the back of the room. The school board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the conclusion of public comment time, the school board chair may address concerns raised by speakers or may assign a responsibility to the superintendent to do so. Speakers are expected to act in a respectful manner. Those who fail to do so after being warned by the meeting chair may be required to leave the meeting. Disruptive attacks on individuals are prohibited. Mr. Toiber, I have 5 cards this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Before I get to the cards, is there anybody that came to the meeting that did not get a chance to fill out a card? I'll ask you now to raise your hand. Anybody on the right side? On the left? Mr. Costello. Okay, we'll now start. Would you please start with your first card?
George Fox.
All right, thank you very much. Couple items. First of all, Pam, I know you're up there. Thank you for my appointment to the Finance Advisory Committee. My last meeting was last week, so wanted to thank you again for that. I had a great time, 2 years serving on there, and I think we got some good things done. Speaking of the Finance Committee, I wanted to let the board know on Wednesday the 21st at 4 o'clock, the Finance Committee is having Dr. Millay come in to talk about our initiative for asking vendors to provide intern opportunities to our students, which I think is a program that I hear has legs. And hopefully she can come in and get the framework for that put together and hopefully get that put into practice as soon as possible. So if you have time as a board member, come on in and view that. It might help you speed along the process, which would be a wonderful thing. Second item I'd like to address is I agree with Chris Quackenbush about elementary school kids having computers. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a lot of money, and I don't think it's the way to go. I think kids should use paper and pencil and reading, writing, and arithmetic when they're in elementary school. So I hope the board and the superintendent will take that into consideration. Also, the health initiative that the superintendent has brought up and Board Member Mary spoke about earlier, I would also like to see that expedited. I think that is vitally important. The Villanueva situation this afternoon and all the other things that have happened all point to a program of health and sexual education would be a very, very good thing for this board and this district to pursue. Dr. Atkins is batting 1,000. Pretty much everything he touches is turning to gold, and I think he's right on, spot on with this as well. And this board would be wise to listen to him and expedite implementation. What he wants to do, let's do it. He's right. Also, along that vein with that situation is private restrooms. I would hope that every school would be outfitted with at least one private restroom for handicapped, elderly, anybody who needs privacy for any reason. I think that could go a long way into that whole situation that was addressed today in the Villanueva, if you know what I'm talking about. That would be a major thing that would be a good idea and would ease the tension on the whole situation. And that is all the things I have to address at the moment. Thank you very much.
Chris Quackenbush.
I attended the 2 o'clock hearing today, and I was very deeply troubled that a JROTC instructor who was expressing his First Amendment rights of his religion and trying to help a student was dismissed with no pay until his hearing. And I went back to the computer again to do more research on the Bible and the effect of the Bible in schools. Since 1624, we've been writing about how children should be using the Bible in education. 1642, compulsory school law passed in Massachusetts called the Old Deluder Satan Law. This law was passed to assure that children could read their Bibles. 1690, Connecticut law passed the children to read so they could read Holy Scriptures. Up to 1781, Congress approves the purchase of Bibles to be used in schools. In fact, schools were not funded unless they were Bible-based. 1787, Congress passes the Northwest Ordinance, which outlines requirements for governments of new territories that can qualify for statehood. Article 3 of the Northwest Ordinance directs the people of the territories to establish schools to teach religion, morality, and knowledge. That's what this gentleman was doing. On up to 1796, this continues all the way through 1964. 63 and 62, there were detrimental Supreme Court decisions in those times. Since 1962, when the Supreme Court ruled that children may not recite a state-written prayer in school, our U.S. schools report the lowest SAT scores ever after 18 years straight of decline following the 1962 ban on school prayer. There's something that's attached to that. And it seems that we have gone overboard in political correctness to remove morality from the basis of our children, which is showing up in the kinds of terrible stories we're getting in the news, terrible things that are happening in our schools because the children do not have a foundation in morality, which is provided by the Ten Commandments, the Bible, all those things that were stripped from us since 1962. I think it would be an interesting time to review the potential of bringing back some kind of those things so that we can, again, establish morality in our schools. The children can at least see the Ten Commandments to know what it means to be a moral citizen. I'm also concerned about the use of computers because it also affords the ability for students to use them immorally and for illegal activities, as we've seen this week. I think that, again, it's shown that books work better for teaching children. Why are we giving them these tools at great expense to the taxpayer that have so many side effects that are so unpleasant to our communities? I would think that we should, as a community, decide that these things have value, and I hope that you will.
Tara Jenner.
Good evening, Tara Jenner. Wanted to piggyback on one thing that Chris was talking about, and she was talking about Supreme Court decisions. And I would like to encourage the board to just keep in mind the fact that Supreme Court decisions are not the supreme law of the land. They're an interpretation of the supreme law of the land. And the fact is that our Supreme Court justices regularly make mistakes. We saw this. Plessy, most of you are familiar with that case. That was a Supreme Court decision, and it was overturned by Brown versus Board of Education. Supreme Court is not infallible, and it is your responsibility to understand and know what our Constitution says, both the federal one as well as the state one. And this particular board and the prior board have been offered opportunities to receive additional training and education on the Constitution and specifically how that would apply to you in your jobs as school board members. And I still would encourage each of you to consider going to that training. I know that Mr. Toiber did attend a large portion of one of the trainings that was hosted by Chris Ann Hall, but there is also free training available online through Hillsdale College and a number of other sources, and I encourage you to avail yourself of those. Also this week, I had the opportunity to speak with an individual, just by chance, who informed me that she had contacted, and I didn't have the names, so I won't specify who it was anyway, individuals at South High School. And her specific area of expertise is in educating individuals on how to handle and how to deal with individuals in both academic as well as business environments that have been subject to human sex trafficking. And she's received no phone call back. And she's contacted several times, apparently, in an effort to offer training to the individuals in our school district. And so if you're interested in this, please, I'd be more than happy to get you in touch with this individual. I know that she would be able to offer this training to the school board members and people within our district as well, so that we can avoid the problems, so that we can actually make sure that we have safeguards in place rather than having to try and fix things after the fact when things have gone awry. Anyway, I'll offer that for you, and please let me know if you need to reach me. I'll be happy to get you in touch with this individual. Thank you.
Bob Valenta.
These are my comments that I attempted to make 3 months ago on June 14th. Ironically, they involved the First Amendment, but that night my First Amendment rights were violated. So I'm just going to read it as if it was that night, so some of it's outdated time-wise. J.K. Rowling was quoted to say, "Voldemort himself created his worst enemy, just as tyrants everywhere do. If you seek the removal of freedoms from an opponent simply on the grounds that they have offended you, you have crossed a line to stand alongside tyrants who imprison, torture, and kill on exactly the same justification. Silencing speech that offends you is standing with tyrants." Those were her words, not mine. Several meetings ago, you cautioned George Fox for mentioning by name some of the board members because it was, quote, against school board policy. Now, I don't agree with much that Mr. Fox has to say, especially on raising taxes. But I do fully support his right to stand up here and say it, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Who do you folks think you are, passing policy that contradicts the Constitution? And now you require the public to list what they wish to talk about for your pre-approval, and if it doesn't pass your approval, you try to shut them down. You can try to shut us up and shut us down, but you're really just fueling the flame. If you want us to shut up, it's really easy. Quit acting like tyrants and quit harming our students. Every day you do nothing about Common Core and high-stakes testing is another day you subject our students to child abuse. Stop this madness, not someday, but today. And finally, I've noticed many of you won't comment on our concerns if we leave the meeting early. That's a mistake. As a single dad, I have to get home and make dinner, help with homework, and undo all the damage that was done that school day by Common Core and tyrants. Make no mistake, I'm listening. I'm watching the video, and so are hundreds of others who are interested in your response to these issues. So please stop doing that, okay? Act as if we're still here in the room, because we kind of are. You're telling them that they are beneath you and to respond to you, that they are beneath you to respond to, and that they are subjugated by you. And that's the message that they get.
Very orthodox.
Mary Orthodoxu, Board, Dr. Atkins. I'd like to echo what Bob Valenta just said about the First Amendment, which you've heard me screaming and yelling and carrying on about for how long now? 3 years? We're about ready to file a class action lawsuit for violating our amendment rights. We don't want to do it. We keep bringing the subject up so we don't have to do it. But you repeatedly violate our First Amendment rights. I don't like a lot of things you do, too. But I have to sit there and listen at the end of the day, whether I like it or not, on some of your decisions. Now I'd like to talk about the Chromebook situation. We already see a problem. This is something we tried to address with you when you wanted to vote to bring the Chromebooks in. You assured the public there were safeguards in place and these things would not happen. Well, apparently those safeguards are failing, because we're back in the news with another negative sex thing. We also have the problem of our budget. We have the problem of building schools. If we didn't use the Chromebooks and we didn't pay all this money for them, we might be able to build schools. We might be able to hire teachers. Going through the Chromebook, I'm noticing we've become a virtual school, and our teachers are becoming facilitators. Are we trying to push the teachers out and just hire Joe Blow, a mechanic, to stand there and babysit our kids in the classroom? Because that's the road we're going down. That's the road you're allowing the government to push us down. We cannot afford this. The growth in Lee County, the schools you want to build, we're in debt now, and you persist to allow the bullies from Tallahassee to push you down into bankruptcy, push the taxpayers into bankruptcy, and harming our children. I think we need to get rid of the Chromebooks, go back to books, pencils, and paper, because you all got educated. You all seem to be doing fine. Are you telling me that you're all morons and you can't function in life? We have to go to this new way of dealing with education that's costing billions of dollars that we cannot afford in Lee County. You can't keep putting more and more on the taxpayers' back. Then we have a situation of power outages. Kids can't do their homework on their Chromebook. So parents are going crazy. The kids are all stressed out. They're not getting homework done. The parents are trying to go to a library that may have their internet running. This is unfair to the public. It's unfair to the children. It's unfair to our budget. Can we please start using common sense in this school district and saying enough is enough?
Thank you, Ms. Orthodox. Your time's up, ma'am. Those are all the cards.
Mr. Castellano.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Atkins. I am Mark Castellano, and I am the president of the Teachers Association of Lee County. And I am here this evening to first thank you, those of you that made comments about Patty this afternoon and today. Patty Lochner, affectionately known as Mama Loch, touched more lives than most of us can ever imagine. What I have learned this week, and I just got back from an FEA governance board meeting, and Patty was a fixture at our meetings, and everybody, we sorely missed her there. What I learned is, after going through hundreds of pictures with Donna of Patty, is that I knew this little tiny slice of Patty's life, and the outreach that she had is absolutely stunning to me. I didn't grasp it at the time, and now I do. Now I understand the 40-some-odd years of her in public education and the 72 years of her life just touched thousands and thousands of people in so many unique ways. One of my favorite things was this happened on a couple of different occasions where I saw Patty talking to someone who I didn't know, and so later I would say to her, you know, who are you talking to? And she'd say, oh, I taught him in kindergarten. And this person is in their 40s or 50s now, and they still remember her, and they still loved her, and they still looked to her. And that's the best part of teaching is that. And Patty was those things. I used to tease her mercilessly. That was our relationship. I call it a love and annoy relationship, and that's what we did. If she didn't hit me with her cane on a day, I knew I wasn't being enough of a smart aleck. FEA did a beautiful video, tribute video to Patty. It is on, I believe it is on our Island Coast FEA Facebook page. I urge you, if you have not done so, go see it. I have it. It is on my Facebook page, so I know that some board members might be able to see that. But I urge you to do that. Any case, we just all remember Patty fondly tonight, and I thank you for your kind words, and I always remember she's there. Marvin sat in the seat behind me tonight. I wanted to tell him, get out of that seat. That seat belongs to somebody. So she's here. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Fox and Ms. Quackenbush, I understand your concern with our Chromebooks. You know, our state initiative, we know that there are some growing pains with that technology, and we are working very hard to fix some of those issues. Ms. Orthodox, you talked about some of the issues with security. Again, issues that we're trying to resolve and get better. There is a technology gap that we still have to fix. We are still maintaining a lot of our books, so there is still that to go to, but it is kind of where the state is pushing us to go, and you're right, it is something not by choice that some of us, that we have to do that, but it is where we're moving. Ms. Jenner, as far as the offer there, I would like to get in touch with you and find out if there's something we can do to plug in to help any training that we can get in our district to be better in any of our subject matters is always a welcome, and I will pass that along to the other board members. Finally, Mr. Castellano, this whole board was touched by Patty. It is definitely a tribute to teachers, the impact that they make on people's lives, the children that they touch, the people that they meet, and she was definitely a model for people to aspire to. So she would definitely be sorely missed, and we all give our regards to her family, and may her rest in peace. Moving now to the approval of the agenda items under consent. Board members, are there any agenda items you wish to pull that are on in the consent agenda? Ms. Fisher.
I have no close.
Ms. Dozier.
I have none, thank you.
Ms. Morgan.
I have one, item 4B2, page 27.
4B2, page 27. Ms. La Riviere, any? Ms. La Riviera? Lost her. Okay, we'll now take the...
I'm being so diligent to keep my phone on mute so you don't hear anything in my background. I have none.
Consent agenda minus 4B2. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Morgan.
Support.
Second by Ms. Fisher. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll now move to item 4B2 on page 27. Dr. Atkins, if you can move to that agenda item.
I recommend board approval of the appointments to the Construction Advisory Committee, Continuous Systemic Improvement Advisory Committee, Curriculum Advisory Committee, Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee, and Finance Advisory Committee, effective September 14, 2016, for the terms indicated in this agenda item.
Board members, you've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Morgan, seconded by Ms. Dozier. Discussion, Ms. Morgan.
Yeah, I pulled this item just because I've had comments from several people in the community about EDAC and perhaps some unintended consequences of the move from EDAC as part of the superintendent's office to the school board. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind the board that in the board reorganization, I would like some thought to be given to the two new board members having the opportunity to add to various committees. In the process of moving people from EDAC superintendent to EDAC school board, because of the district allocation, some people who have been very valuable assets on that committee have not been able to be given a seat at this time. So this is just for the future board when it meets in November. I'm just putting in my request that you think about EDAC when you talk about expanding advisory committee membership. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Dozier, did you have your hand up?
Well, I did think about putting my hand up. I would like to ask Mr. Martin a question. I know it talks about appointments of every board member in our policy, and I believe, do we have to change that policy, or would it go ahead and allow those people to make appointments when they are elected?
Well, the policy as it reads right now, the policy provides that the board actually makes the appointments, but the individual board members select their representatives on each of the committees, and each selects 3. But at the same time, the policy indicates with respect to all the committees except for DAC that the total membership will be 15. So yes, there will need to be some revision to the policy. Of course, it also states that each of the committees will have a board liaison, and with 7 members, I think right now the chair, I believe, acts as the liaison for DAC and EDAC. And when you go to 7 members, there may be a need to consider how that's going to be allotted among the 7 members. So there are probably a few different issues in the policy that need to be discussed and possibly amended.
And I think, board members, Dr. Atkins and I will speak with Andrea from the FSBA tomorrow. We'll address that policy change, how Pinellas did it, and see if in that onboarding process, if we need to revisit some of those policies, and we'll work with Mr. Martin and bring those forward as well.
And I do remember us having a conversation here at the table about the extra committees that we had, and that would make everyone having the opportunity to serve on committees, such as the calendar committee. There was one other committee that we don't list as a district committee or a board committee, so keep that in mind as you're having those conversations. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. At this time, included in the approval of the consent agenda items are the resolutions proclaiming September 2016 as Do the Right Thing Month, September 17th as the Constitutional Day and Citizenship Day, and September 15th through October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month. We also, Dr. Atkins, would you please introduce any administrators in attendance with a new assignment that were approved on the consent agenda?
I have Jenny Bartlett, it was at Mirror Lakes Elementary, and is moving to assistant principal. I believe is in the audience. Congratulations. Donna McPhee, Treeline Elementary teacher, to assistant principal.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. At this point, we'll now move to our superintendent's recommendations. Dr. Atkins.
First recommendation, I recommend board approval to adopt the 2017 legislative platform for the school district of Lee County.
Board members, you heard the recommendations. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Dozier, seconded by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Atkins.
I recommend board approval of the contract with the Lee County Sheriff's Office to support the School Resource Officer Program for the period of August 3rd, 2016 to August 2nd, 2017 at a total cost not to exceed $2,228,100. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Board members, you heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Dozier, seconded by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Our third recommendation, which is item E.
The item E is I recommend board approval of the annual financial report for the School District Lee County for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2016, with no cost to the district.
Board members, you heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Morgan. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Atkins.
Next one, I recommend board approval to piggyback the Lee County School District County Commissioners bid awarded to J.M. Todd, Inc. for the annual lease and purchase of copiers for the period of September 13th, 2016 through September 12th, 2017, an estimated expenditure of $560,000 with the option to cancel if deemed in the best interest of the district. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all documents.
Board members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Dozier, seconded by Ms. Morgan. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Atkins.
I recommend board approval to piggyback Lee County Board of County Commissioners contract for the purchase of Ford automobiles, sport utility vehicles, passenger and light-duty vans, light and medium-duty trucks, and cabin chassis awarded to Sam Galloway Ford, Inc. for the period of September 13th, 2016 through December 9th, 2016, for a one-time expenditure of $211,284 with the option to cancel if deemed in the best interest of the district. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Members, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Dozier, seconded by Ms. Morgan. Any discussion? Ms. Dozier.
I am going to take the opportunity to make a comment about this. This is a contract that is a local company, and this is also a contract that is not only used throughout the state, but it's also used throughout the United States. And there's a reason that people use this company, and it's because this company gives the absolute lowest rock bottom price on all of their white fleet. And, you know, it's hard to live in a community. I know there's been accusations out there about my relationship with the Galloway family. It's hard to live in a community as long as you have, or as long as I have, and not have relationships with a lot of different people in the community. I'm proud of the relationship that I have with this family, and we were doing business with the Galloway family long before I ever was a blink in the eye of this school board, so I will be supporting this wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. And your last recommendation, Dr. Atkins.
I recommend board approval to award bid to lease purchase financing of school buses to Bank of America Public Capital Corp. as indicated on the attached proposed tabulation for the period of September 13th, 2016 through October 5th, 2021, and approval to piggyback the Florida Department of Education bid for the period of September 13th, 2016 through June 30, 2017, and an estimated expenditure not to exceed $20,650,000 with the option to cancel if deemed in the best interest of the district. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Board members, you heard the motion. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Dozier. Any discussion? I'd like to say, take this opportunity to thank Mr. Law for the aggressive move. We had opportunity at the briefing meeting, after the briefing meeting, to go out and see the new style buses, economically efficient, getting us to where we need to be to get our buses, to get our kids to school on time. It's an aggressive schedule with both our leaseback program and our purchase program, so I appreciate for us to getting us back where we need to be. So I'll be approving this as well. Take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. That concludes our superintendent's recommendations. We'll now move to other business, which is board members' comments and reports. I'll start with you, Ms. LaRiviere.
Earlier I did not mention the passing of Patty Lochner, and I grieve with many. And I'm thrilled that I had the opportunity to know Patty over these years and have quite conversations going back and forth regarding different viewpoints, and how delightful to be able to have that type of an intelligent conversation and to sometimes just agree to disagree. But just one thing I wanted to share with those of you who knew and loved Patty more than I did. And it's this quote: "Talk to your loved one as if they are still around. The truth is, they are. So talk to Patty whenever you want to. She's still there." That's all for my comments for tonight.
Disconnect, and it's structural and it's operational, and everybody is working their hardest to figure out how we can get through this and make it work well for the students and work well in the classroom. I do appreciate the fact that the superintendent is recommending, or has placed in his organization chart, a chief technology operations officer for the school district, because I think that is essential to coordinate some of the, we're spending a lot of money, we have a lot of efforts going on, we need some coordination and support in that vein, and so I appreciate him taking that initiative. I think once that, or he or she, once they are on board, it would be very opportune to have a conversation about where we are as a district overall with respect to technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Ms. Dozier.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody that spoke this evening and spoke very passionately about their views and their concerns on particular issues. You know, as I think about computers, my daughter and I have conversations around my grandson, and who is a second grader, and he is limited as far as his computer time, or his tablet time or iPad time or whatever. And, you know, a lot of people have talked about the fact that the stimulus is not there in a computer as you get from interaction within. And I am concerned that we are training robots or training students that don't have those interpersonal skills. And I think that today our society is part of that, because too many kids have been in front of computers and dealing with computers and not dealing with inner skills with one another. And I truly believe that. I think that that is part of what's wrong with today's problems. And, you know, we've got to teach those skills. And if it is not having those books at an early age, because they've got to have those skills before they can work with one another. You know, when they go into, like Ms. Fisher, I think this afternoon said that she was with a middle school and that the teacher gave an instruction, put the kids in group work, and the kids didn't know how to communicate with one another, so they said, oh, we'll just do it by ourselves, because they don't have those skills to work together, and they're not getting them on those Chromebooks, and we've got to teach them that. And you know, that these are messages that we need to share with our legislators. When they mandate that we purchase these and mandate that every student has a Chromebook available to them, this is what we've got to let them see, the outcomes of what is coming as a result of that. So I thank all of you that did speak to this evening, and I appreciate the fact that you took time out to talk about this. I would ask you to go one step further and don't just talk to us, but also send your concerns, send your individual research that you've done, but try to be as succinct as possible with the legislators. And I think that as we all talk and we all go to Tallahassee and approach and let them see that maybe there are some drawbacks, that maybe they will give us some relief. So thank you. And Mr. Castellano, thank you for your comments. I ask in a certain way if Ms. Fisher would do a moment of silence tonight, so I appreciate your comments. Ms. Lochner helped me quite a bit over the years, and that's all I'll say about that. So thank you for your comments, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dozier. Ms. Fisher.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going to take just a minute to talk a little bit about legislation. We have our School Board of Lee County 2017 legislative priorities, and I'm just going to capsulize what the topics are. Invest in high-quality instruction. Protect public assets and provide needed student stations. You know, and in that, we're asking for money. The legislature this year anticipates focusing on higher education. I would encourage people to talk to their legislators about the importance of K-12 education to higher education. In fact, we prepare the kids to meet those requirements and be admitted to colleges and universities. So I hope that they are not leaving out a very important part, and contact your local legislators to let them know that that in fact is an important piece of what needs to be done. Our third one is to respect the local constitutional authority of school boards. We are burdened with many state mandates, and we continuously are told that we are to uphold the Constitution and the law, which we do. However, if we had the opportunity to make decisions more locally, we could focus our resources better to where we know we need them in our own community. Support fair competition, and that is in regard to our charter schools and the funding that goes out of the public school coffers and into charter schools. And then lastly, but not least, restore smart accountability. And we are looking at the state assessment requirements, and we're looking at our district mandated testing. And, you know, I continue to hear that there's so much testing happening, and we are changing our approach a little bit, and it takes time to get everybody on board. But part of our Restore Smart Accountability is to allow pencil and paper exams to be offered if selected by local districts to reduce overall testing time improve scheduling, and provide better measurements of actual learning for at least the lower grades. Then we had our greater Florida Consortium of School Boards meeting, and we arrived at 4 highlighted priorities. One was to oppose further equalization of the local discretionary millage, which refers to the fact that everybody puts money in and then it's redistributed so that we're not always getting our fair share. Uphold the 90% rule in the Florida Educational Funding Program, and state fund mandates for transportation and instructional materials entirely. Conduct an impartial third-party study of the Florida Price Level Index to reflect costs of housing, insurance, poverty, and transportation rather than wages. Number 4, oppose any mandatory diversion of local discretionary capital outlay levy revenue from traditional to non-traditional public schools, which does severely impact our local capital budget. And the last one is to establish a salary allocation in the Florida Education Funding Program for teacher salaries. So that's where we are, and we know that we need to continue to talk to our legislative delegation and representatives so that they understand the importance of this to our own community. I wasn't going to make a comment about Chromebooks and computers, but I feel as a person who visits schools frequently and who has a number of grandchildren and a couple of great-grandchildren, I have to say this. I don't see kids only working with Chromebooks and computers. I see kids interacting with teachers. I also know that a lot of the emphasis on technology begins very early in life before kids even go to school. When I handed my great-granddaughter, who's 2, a book, she did this because she thought she could move the pictures like she does on the iPad. So I think that we have to look at the reality and take the opportunity to visit schools and see what is happening. And yes, we are using technology as a tool, but teachers are teaching and they are interacting with kids. And I mean, any teachers in the audience, I'm sure, would say that they are. So let's look at the total picture before we get too hung up on the Chromebooks. And do kids use technology inappropriately? Yes, they do. They do. And, you know, they are children. They make mistakes. They'll try anything once. And we have a responsibility to monitor that and to monitor them and to look at what else we're doing in schools and start to teach social skills and interpersonal skills and appropriate decision-making. And again, that's another commercial for my comprehensive health education policy. So with that, I thank all of our staff. Congratulations to our new assistant principals. I know you'll work very hard. And thank you all for all you do every day, and I appreciate an opportunity to serve with my colleagues on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Mr. Martin.
Yes, sir. Just a reminder that tomorrow evening, training will be provided with respect to the operation of board advisory committees at 5:30 right here for newly appointed and continuing advisory committee members and for staff and board liaisons. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Dr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Toiber. Just a couple things. A number of you weighed in on technology. Just a couple pieces on that. First piece is that for elementary schools, that implementation in terms of, quote, Chromebooks, is not, you're not looking at anything that's going to be anything at all like what you see at the high school and the middle school. There's not going to be a Chromebook type implementation. We're still reviewing what type of implementation we're going to do there, and certainly I think you'll see much less than the one-to-one like you saw at the secondary level. In addition to that, I did ask our team to reduce the amount that was originally allocated for technology and to move it into other expenditures, one being buses. So as I said to them, I said it doesn't make sense to spend 10 million here and only 4 million here when this is breaking down and not getting kids to school on time. You know, we're paying 6 million in overtime costs. None of that makes sense. We need to spend less in the area of technology and more in the area of getting kids to schools, so that's what they did, and we'll continue to look at that. I think we're all somewhat concerned, many of us very concerned. If you look at college and universities are reporting that our students are losing the ability, and I'm talking as a nation, losing the ability to do long periods of sustained reading, and that's coming up as a shortcoming in our universities and colleges, so we want to make sure that that long sustained reading is something that, of a real book, is something that's important that we do. You know, when I was a principal, it wasn't a very popular decision, but I made the decision to, even with the gifted program, to reinstitute reading for those students, and the results were remarkable in a positive way. And so, you know, I think you're going to see something similar moving forward. I do want to also address testing and assessment. You know, the high-stakes testing and common sense accountability is, you know, we have to move towards more of a common sense accountability. This is a culture shift. It's much more difficult than I imagined. You know, one of the things that we are having very frank discussions and with disagreement and moving toward consensus on how do we assess, what's the purpose of assessment of our students. As you know, the district removed the district checkpoints that we heard about over the last couple of years. You know, last year you saw a lot of schools still using those, and even this year some of them are wanting to tap into that and use that as a resource, but we are weaning them off of that. And it is there are teachers that want to use that, but there's other teachers that are concerned about the construction of those. So what we are also trying to do is to provide, working with Florida Gulf Coast University, and trying to actually teach the proper use of assessment, formative assessment. You know, you should be assessing in all different types of ways, paper, pencil, demonstration, what you actually, you know, can put eyes on the students and watch them demonstrate something, computer, a lot of different methods you can be assessing students and determining whether or not they're making progress toward the content that you're trying to teach them. And I think that too often we give a test or a quiz and we put the number in the grade book. We should be using assessment to drive instruction. Where are we falling down as teachers in terms of not meeting the needs of the students? What does that, what do these types of formative assessments tell us, and what do we need to do differently, reteach, et cetera. So, but there's training. Many, I asked a question of our assistant principals the other day. I said, how many of you came into this profession through a non-traditional, non-teaching avenue? I think it was at least 50% of the room raised their hands. So that means they've not been through teacher education college, they just came into the profession from another means, had no instruction on, you know, how to teach, the pedagogy, the all of that stuff that we just take for granted that they know. So we have to do the job here, and I think part of the issue that we have, that we see out there, is that not everybody knows how to use that, so they just give these checkpoints and put the grade in the book, and that's just not a good use of the students' time, and we spend too much time doing it. So, like I said, it's a huge cultural shift. It's taking time, but we're getting there. And the partnership with FGCU is certainly helpful, and we're going to strike a better one up with FSW. We did meet with the whole College of Education recently with the new dean to get to know them, and that's one of the things we talked about was this whole issue. because the high-stakes testing, I think, is just driving everybody nuts. Tara Jenner, I believe that person sent an email and to me, or at least I think it got to me, and if that's the case, I know that I've asked Dr. Bohatch to follow through. Now, Dr. Bohatch has not been in town, so I trust that that's going to happen, but I'll follow up and make sure that that's the case. That's why they haven't heard from me, because I put it to him to do. So, budget, I did mention that I want to, well, first let me back up and say I want to thank the board for its support with the budget. That's a huge deal. We are also working with our business executives at that business roundtable. They have given us some incredible ideas. We've got some really great business and financial minds that are looking. We've opened up our budget. We want them to take a look. We have a goal of a $40 million gap that we want to bridge, which is we can be a good district if we keep going on the way we are, but we need to be a great district, and that's going to require us bridging that gap. And we would like to do a lot of really standing on our own and raising revenues through naming rights. There's all kinds of ideas out there I think you're going to see in this next year. Lastly, I also want to mention Patty Lochner. Patty is somebody, when you're the chief negotiator, you're going to run into Patty. If you deal in labor relations, you're going to run into Patty. Mama's watching you. You better behave. And somewhere out there, she's still watching us, so we better behave. So having said that, I just, again, thank you for your support, and that's all my comments today.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Our next scheduled meeting of the board is on Tuesday, September 27th. There's a school board briefing at 2 p.m. and a school board action meeting at 6 p.m. At this point, having no more business come before the body, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Dozier. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.